Welcome to another episode of Digging for the Truth. I have my sweet bride back, and we're going to be talking about part 2 of this parenting series that we're going through, and we can't wait to share it with you right after this. Well, welcome to another episode of Digging for the Truth. I am bringing back my sweet bride, Trent Taylor.
Hi, everybody.
Well, I hope that you enjoyed the opening part last week when we talked about you, actually, the parent, and how we all come from someplace and have an upbringing and a preconceived notion of what parenting is. But tonight, we're actually going to be talking about your child. And we're going to really begin this kind of by breaking down something that is important. So we're going to break tonight, just as we do each week, into 3 parts. But we're going to also begin with each week with the 4 principles that we call the principles of parenting, core principles, rather. And so principle number 1, is to always parent with Jesus. Listen, it is hard enough to be in this world. I cannot imagine what it is like to try to parent a child without Jesus. We have 5 kids, as we've mentioned, many times before, and every one of them are different. And whenever I'm dealing with a situation, I can't tell you how often I go to God and say, Lord, I don't know what to do about this. Mm-hmm. So have Jesus in the middle of your parenting relationship. Number 2, love your child as you love yourself, right? The golden rule, but it's also loving our neighbors. We love ourselves. They're just little neighbors, And what did Jesus say whenever he was confronted and asked, well, which is the greatest commandment? Well, love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your mind. And to love your neighbors, you love yourself. And this applies to parenting as well. Number 3, have the heart of your children. We're going to, I think it's episode 4, right? Part 4?
Yeah, I think so. 3 is discipline, 4 is have the heart of your child.
So that's probably our favorite section.
That's what it's all about.
It's what we're leading to. And so having the heart of your kids, there's a lot of ways that you can do this. And there's a lot of ways you can lose it. And the world, if you don't have the heart, trust me, the world is doing everything they can. There's millions of voices screaming for the attention of your children and for their heart. Number 4, can't control anybody but yourself. This is a hard one. Yeah. Because you hear this term, well, control your children. Well, okay. We need to teach them to self-control. Galatians 5:22 talks about the fruit of the Spirit: love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, self-control. Right. And all of those fruits of the Spirit help lead to self-control. So we will talk about, especially next week, probably on discipline, but we'll kind of frame that out even more. Mm-hmm. So this week, though, we are going to be talking about just how God is in 3. We serve a triune God: the Father, the Son, Holy Spirit. Well, we are made in 3 parts as God is in 3 parts. We're body, soul, and spirit. And so as we kind of get into this, we touched on some of this last week, but it's worth reiterating. Frederick Douglass had a phenomenal quote. It says it's easier to build strong children than to repair broken men.
It's good.
I wanted to make sure I got that right.
Yeah.
Because it is so true. I can't tell you how many people in my life that, including myself, we all have baggage, but if you create a healthy framework in your home as you parent, your children, they're going to leave with baggage, okay, but just a whole lot less baggage. And so that's really kind of, what that is lending itself to. And I want you to remember that, God chose you to be the parent of your children.
Handpicked.
He handpicked you for them. And, our child was created in the image of God as well. And so as we parent, and this is going to be important, and it's going to be something that we mention again and again, but that we treat them with dignity and respect. And so tonight is important because we're going to talk about, our body, our soul, and our spirit. But just like anything else, we're going to start simply. We're going to start with our body.
Physical needs. This may seem kind of, well, duh, you guys, I'm not stupid, but it really is important to discuss it because I feel like so many times we try to make our kids like us. If we can skip lunch and we're fine, then our kids should be able to do that too. But truly, those little bodies need calories, and they need a.
And hangry is a real thing.
Hangry is a real thing.
It's scientifically proven at this point, but it is a real thing.
Yeah, especially in our house, we have a couple, including me.
Yeah, in fact, even before we come have these podcasts, I'm like, have you eaten? Because I don't want to get in trouble.
I probably should eat, huh? Okay. So I ate before I came to this podcast.
So she's ready to go. She's
I'm ready.
sweet. She's super
I'm happy
sweet.
now.
Yeah.
But so the thing is, your kids probably need regular snacks. I am astonished how much food some kids can put down.
Not just kids, man. So we have 4 girls, right? And 1 boy, 4 girls. So you always think the boys are going to be,
right?
Man. These girls, they can, I don't know, man. I think we should have some competitions. I think the girls could out eat them.
They can put it away. All you with girls out there like, I hear some people saying amen to that. But there are also things, if they have a tummy ache because of something they eat, they might not be able to articulate that to you. And it'll make them crabby. Or we had a situation, I won't tell which child of ours, but if we gave this particular child sugar, they would
they couldn't hold their sugar, man.
Off the tracks. And it would
within 24 hours.
Within 24 hours. And they would have massive tantrums and
couldn't control themselves.
Pretty much be an impossible person. And it's interesting. Somebody looked at this child of ours and they said, they pointed across the bridge of their nose. Those of you who can't see me, you're listening. I'm pointing to my nose, the bridge of my nose. And they looked at our child and they said, oh, they have the sugar bug vein. And I tilted my head and I said, the what? And they smiled and they said, well, in the Japanese culture, there's something called the sugar bug vein, that if that child has sugar, that child should not have sugar because they become aggressive or something to that extent.
It's very true.
And we found that to be true. So we truly, truly tried to limit sugar for this child. And it really revolutionized our family. It really did.
And her.
And you said her. So it's
but listen, we got 4 girls, man. You don't know which girl.
You don't know which girl. And it's something that also, this lends it to principle number 1, parenting with Jesus. Since you already said her, I'm going to start saying her. It's less words. I was going before the Lord because it's exasperating and exhausting to have a child who throws tantrums every day.
It is.
And they're trying to hurt you. They're trying to hurt themselves. They hurt the furniture, whatever. I have been there, and it's exasperating. And I was going before the Lord saying, how do I help her? Because I know I don't want to throw a tantrum because I know that's just going to be like gasoline on a fire. So going before the Lord, I just felt the Holy Spirit tell me, you need to take her sweet little face in your hands every night and tell her, I love you when you're good. I love you when you throw a fit. I love you when you pinch me. I love you all the time. There is nothing that you could do that would change that. And I just love you. And so I would say that to her every night and kiss her face. And eventually her heart began to believe me. And that self-control was developed. And meanwhile, we're giving her tools saying, if you feel that coming on, you can feel that way. But that's not who you are. And just beginning to equip her with Bible verses and encouraging her that she can have self-control, it completely changed our family. And within maybe a year of obeying what the Spirit spoke over her, we began to see her stop.
You know what's interesting, too? So she also, through this period, began to really cultivate her love of God and worship, and she would just sit at the piano and play and sing and make up songs and worship. In fact, one story is Brandy been talking about, just
saints in China.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Okay.
You share it. Yeah.
Sorry, I interrupted.
No, you're good.
It's one of my favorite stories. I had been sharing with our children during Bible time about the saints in China and just how fortunate and blessed we are as Americans to be able to go to church, to own Bibles, to have stores dedicated to Bibles. And this...
Well, at least as of, March 2023.
Right. Oh, yeah. I was just sharing that with them, though, and it really burdened her heart. And she came to me after and was asking a lot of questions. And I just remember later, and one of her tools in her little toolbox to not throw tantrums was music. So if you feel the peace of God when you listen to songs or when you play songs, let's do that. So that's a little rewind. I heard her at our piano, and she was just playing her chords, and she was singing, and I can't even remember what she was singing, but it was something along the lines of look up and believe, and God is with you, these kinds of things from a sweet little innocent heart. And after she was done, I didn't interrupt her, but I was just, oh, that is gold, and that's something I will ponder in my heart forever and ever and ever. And she got finished, and I said, I heard you singing, and that was really powerful. I felt Jesus in that. What was that about? Do you mind telling me? And she said, I was singing and praying over the saints in China, and I just lost it. I was a gooey mess. That's my favorite story. But so by equipping your children with Scripture, telling them they can overcome how they feel. They are not their feelings. It's okay, though, to be angry. It's okay to be ticked. But just to give them the toolbox they need. Let's go listen to this song. It brings me peace, and it makes me think of Jesus.
And it connects back to our physical body, because sometimes that's where this began, was the catalyst was physical. Mm-hmm. And then that became soul and spirit. So. Right.
And explaining that to them, they get it, guys. They are so intelligent, and so just telling them, you feel this way because you ate this, but this is also, you were created in 3, just like the Father. Another important thing is exercise and fresh air. I feel like because it's a dangerous world, and because so many of us are limited in space, you can't just send your kids out on the bike. Like a lot of us grew up.
When I was a kid, when I grew up, I was all over town on my bike.
You rode miles and miles and miles and miles away. I can't believe how far you rode, but it's impressive. But
different world.
Yeah, different world. Our kids, they don't have quite the opportunity that we have. But if you have a safe space where they can get outside, climb trees, get dirty, and if they dig holes, don't get too mad at them. Playing in the mud and feeling grass
on the toes,
grass on their toes. I think there's even a scientific study that when babies felt grass underneath their feet, that they were genius. I should be equipped with that.
Well, I like the ones the videos where you put the baby on the grass and then they pick they stick their legs straight up.
Yeah, it's so cute.
I like that one.
I think we had a couple of kids like that ourselves. But to get them outside to work out that energy is God-given, and it frustrates us. Like we said last week, kids are, they'll inconvenience you and make you feel uncomfortable, but I feel like being sent outside to play, open-ended play, you're not telling them what to play, you're just letting them play. And I think that is a fundamental part of childhood and their development. They need open-ended play. They need fresh air. They need exercise. I feel like, and I might have a lot of boo feedback on this, so maybe I shouldn't say it, but I often wonder if a lot of the children who are prescribed ADD, ADHD kind of medication, if they just need to go outside and play.
I'd have probably been diagnosed as that. I think it's a real thing. And
I do too.
We both agree with that.
Yeah.
We also think, though, that it's overused. I think some kids just, I was a handful, and maybe I still am. I don't know. But I think that sometimes we're going back to that physical body. Mm-hmm. And sometimes there are natural, especially just letting them get out and play and be, because it's going to reduce cortisol levels and all types of things. Right.
Get that vitamin D. It's really important. And I'm sorry if I've offended anybody by the ADHD statement, because I really believe that it's a legitimate concern. So you listen to God for your kid on that. But if you're on the fence and you don't know, just try physical activity. I remember when one of our kids was 5, we jog, and she went with me, and she was able to jog a mile, and 5 years old.
Yeah.
They have a great capacity. So if you're on the fence, just maybe consider getting out to the track or something and just seeing if they like it, and if that's a good outlet for them and a healthy way for them to expel all that cortisol and that energy. Sleep is another really important part of a childhood. Having a consistent schedule this is kind of a no-brainer, but some kids thrive on 8 hours. Some need a lot more than that.
Well, depending on their age.
Yeah.
When they're infants and teenagers, they seem to need a whole lot more. So,
and here's where I would put in a plug, and just our teens, they are developing just as much as our infants were, but now they have the distraction of that phone. And if you can have them put their phone in your bedroom so they don't hear the chime and they aren't tempted to.
Well, not only that, to protect their hearts. I mean,
Yeah,
just
that's true.
since you're saying in our home, now once you get, you eventually earn the right by 18, you have to be able to self-regulate. But phones, they live in the kitchen. They have to be down by 9:30, 10 o'clock. We have different, rules depending on age. Our youngest children, so we have got to the point where we won't even allow our youngest children to even have a phone until they're 16, ready to drive. And there you think, oh my gosh, here's the thing is that we're protecting their innocence. And when we do it, I have a lot of empirical data on this at this point, not just because, I have kids, but I mean, my industry and what I do for a living.
Well, and you have a ministry, Kids, Parents, and Tech. So you've gone out and talked to thousands of students and teachers. You're qualified to say it.
So that's just a quick plug. But regardless of what you're doing, I'm not criticizing you if you're doing something different. Just listen to the Father and trust your peace. But yeah, make your kids keep that in the kitchen, and they can use a good old fashioned alarm clock to wake up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, and this is another no-brainer, so I won't take long on it. But safety. Assume your kid is going to find the most dangerous thing in the room, especially 6 and under, 7 and under. Or,
a teenage boy, 16, 18.
Oh, yeah.
Or, 46-year-old. If you have certain types of explosives.
Well, tell us about proper physical touch and how important.
Physical touch is really, really important. In fact, we live in a world that is incredibly perverted. I mean, the sexual abuse. So Brandy and I, as we've mentioned before, we've taught classes, and the people that are coming in, are many more CPS cases. We've heard so many horrible stories that will absolutely just wrench your heart. From areas of abuse to sexual abuse. It's just so one of the things, but I'm going to say a few things here that and I just don't want you to hear it, that what I am about to say on some of these things may not pertain to you. Okay. These are what we do. We do everything with an abundance of caution, but let's talk about proper physical touch. Even here, I had a friend the other day I was having lunch with tell me about one of their kids who was in a school here in Amarillo, and that kid basically was saying, my daddy tells me to do this and to do this and do this. And eventually, they had to call the authorities. And you just don't, it is such a sick world, a hypersexualized world. So, it's so important that they have proper physical touch is incredibly important. In fact, when a baby is born, there's all these studies it's not even just studies. There were studies, but you take, Russia and some of these Cold War, and these orphanages and these kids, these babies, they were fed, they were changed, and but they were never loved, held, and they basically created sociopaths. And so it is a very important thing, especially what do they say when the baby's born? The very first thing you want to do, it's incredible, just put it up on the mama's bare skin.
Skin to skin contact.
Yeah, that skin to skin contact. And
it's beautiful.
It is beautiful. So when we talk about proper physical contact, we teach our children, that any place where you would have, a swimsuit or anything else, nobody, not daddy, nobody should ever touch you in these places. Mm-hmm. And we talk about modesty with our kids. When it comes to me hugging my kids, all these little girls, my goodness, they want to cuddle, they want to get in my lap, and that's great. But I do several things. I do not let them straddle me. They have to sit across, or they might sit on my lap, like right here while we're watching a show or something like that. but do not let them straddle me. And this is the one thing I'm going to mention that some people just can't hardly cope with, but I don't kiss any of my children on the lips. You know, I know you think, and if you do, I'm not criticizing you. So you don't leave comments saying I called you a pedophile. Somebody actually did that one time. And I was by no means calling them a pedophile.
No.
Okay. I was like, this is out of an abundance of caution. And so but I do love on them. I kiss them all the time on the cheeks, on the forehead. I mean, I give them big hugs and kisses. It's just, and what's funny is every now and then those little girls, they'll try to turn that face real quick and just get back in there. I'm like, no, but it's just basically to let them understand, hey, listen, I'm your daddy. And they know I'm willing to die for them. And if I'm willing to, these are the boundaries that I'm setting for them. So I'm setting the standard for them. So if somebody else tries to do something that daddy won't do, they know that's not good. So real quick, your teens, they need hugs. They need hugs and kisses too, man. Not too long ago, my 18-year-old, she sat in my lap just like a little girl, and so they need those hugs. And when we give them that proper physical touch and those hugs, think about what it does for you. You might be thinking, well, I don't like hugs. My boy,
he's kind of like,
yeah, he's like a limp noodle, man. He does not want to be hugged. Okay. But but here's the thing is that ironically, I think he really kind of enjoys it on the inside because I'll come up behind him and just kind of say, hey buddy. And he doesn't fight me too many on that.
Yeah.
He's getting better at giving his mama hugs.
Yeah.
But
I like it.
But if I leave but I will say this, if I try to leave without giving hugs to the girls, I create in fact, I've had to come back before to the house.
Like, they're just really sad. Can you fix this? Because they'll be sad for hours.
So anyway, setting proper physical touch, is a very important thing. So we're going to move on to section number 2, and some of these will go a little bit faster, but we're going to be talking about our soul. Now, this is a narrow focus, but we're going to go ahead for argument's sake, and we're going to talk about mind, will, and emotions. Because when we talk about our spirit, eternal, next, we still will have our mind. We still will have our will. We still will have emotions, okay? So our personality stays intact. But when we talk about the soul, we're talking basically about the connectivity, tissue, the connective tissue between our body and our spirit. And, as believers, we have a tendency to focus all the time, we talk about the body, okay? But then we focus on the spirit all the time. And then we talk about the body of Christ, right? There's all this body and spirit. But you know what we leave out all the time is soul. Do you know how many scriptures there are about souls? About our soul? I'm going to read something to you that'll resonate and you'll recognize. In Psalm 103, verses 1 through 4, bless the Lord, O my soul, and all that is within me. Bless his holy name. Bless the Lord, O my soul. And forget not all his benefits, who forgives all your iniquities, who heals all your diseases, who redeems your life from destruction, who crowns you with loving kindness and tender mercies, who satisfies your mouth with good things, so that your youth is renewed like the eagles. I want you to think, there's so many things that happened in this scripture, okay? It touched mouth, good things in our mouth. It touched our soul. It touched the spirit. It talked about renewing our energy. So we have a tendency to really neglect our soul. So let's just break those 3 pieces down, and let's begin with the mind.
Well, and I'll just open with this on my section here. I have a few introverts, and they truly need a quiet space to replenish and to feel like the best version of themselves. And so I'm teaching them at an early age to build that into their schedule. If I see that they're slumped and I'm just watching their nonverbals and they're not okay, do you need some time by yourself? And not in a, you need to be by yourself. You are a hot mess or whatever. No, it's more of a, I'm trying to nurture you and teach you how to nurture yourself. So
that's right. Yeah.
Knowing their personalities and helping them understand the way you were made is amazing. It's not wrong. And you feel this way because your soul is tired. You've been around people all day and you kind of need some time by yourself. How about I make you a cup of tea and you can go in your room and read? That's
Yeah, that's good.
Nanny girl. Curiosity is a fundamental part of childhood. It's the part of childhood that drives a lot of us control freaks crazy. It's the bowls and pots and pans out of the cabinets all over the kitchen and the floor, and the bang, 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 bang of the pots and pans and lids and spoons. And that's why the baby drops the sippy cup off the high chair. They just want to know and discover. And if I do this, what happens? And even what buttons can I push on mom and dad before they explode? This is fun. So,
that was dead. That wasn't fun.
yeah. So just teaching them to be curious, to keep chasing things, to keep that wonder alive, to supply them with things that make them curious. Buckets full of rice or sand or Play-Doh, the things that are messy. And with our first two kids, I feel like maybe they didn't totally miss out, but they sure didn't get as much of it as our last.
They were a couple of lab rats, guinea pigs, whatever. I know.
But I definitely, like, if they were bored, we'd go outside and play with Play-Doh and stuff. With the girls, they played with Play-Doh and glitter until he banned it.
I did ban glitter. And you know what? Glitter is straight from Satan, man.
They'd be like, dude, you got some glitter.
Yeah, I mean, I'll be in a meeting, and I have glitter all over my beard, and I've had it all day, Anyway, The worst one, I will say this, was they've been watching Tinkerbell.
Oh.
Okay, and they had this whole huge deal of gold glitter. And one kid said, hey, you want to fly like Tinkerbell? And dumped
Pixie Dust.
Yeah, and dumped the entire thing on top of her head, man. You know how many weeks it takes to get glitter out of a kid's head?
It was impressive.
Like
and
weeks.
Awful. Yeah. And like scrubbing it off her. Oh, wow. And we would find it in the weirdest places. Be like, oh, there's gold glitter. Pixie dust. Anyway, so fostering their creativity, giving them that free space and creating that time, carving out that time at the kitchen table where they're making a mess, finding out what they're good at. In our house, as y'all know, we're both musicians. We have all kinds of instruments, and we have taught them how to respect them, how to play them, even if they're not making beautiful sounds from the instrument yet, if they're not producing music as we would call it yet, but they're respecting it, then they can keep producing screeches and whatever, as long as they respect the instrument and they're considerate of those around them. We've given them that liberty, and the fruit of that now, 10 years.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. So you've probably seen, our boy, he's a 16-year-old. He's a phenomenal guitarist. The one who doesn't like having any attention, he's been on the stage, and he really has the talent to do.
I think he's a savant.
And he's so stinking good.
I know his mom.
Yeah, and McKinley, she's been up on stage also singing. She has a great voice, a heart for worship. She's been doing a lot of other things with other ministries as well. Yeah. So seeing them, seeing that gift come out in them is cool. And it begins with screeches and plucks and dings and whatever. But ironically, she's really susceptible to noise. But that, for some reason, never, has been an issue. I
think it's God's grace, because I really feel like music is a godly, what's the word? He's called that. Well, it's coming in and going out,
Yeah,
it's called on our family.
It is. And so, worship, it's even going before the armies, right? Mm-hmm. You go out first and worship.
Yeah.
And so but anyway.
But that's the Taylor house. You have your house. If it's even teaching the kids how to work with cars or wood or gardening, just whatever interests your family, bring them in. They're not too young, and just teach them how to respect it. Teach them how to be safe, because some of those things matter, right? Yeah. But just foster that creativity, because they are absolutely intelligent and genius. I'd also encourage you to read. I think that this has made a world of difference in our own children. I see that the more words they have, the more the wheels turn, and it's beautiful. So read, get your hands on some fantastic books. If you need a list, come find me at church.
She has a book problem.
It's not a problem.
And the library every year, whenever they, trying to get rid of all these books.
I'm a fan.
We have a van. And she'll fill that sucker up, man.
No, I won't. But I do buy between 20 and 40 books
a week. A month. Yeah, a month. Yeah.
Yeah, but they're all used.
Well, hold on a minute. If we average them out for the year, it might be more. I don't know. Let's talk about the will.
All right.
I'll let you kick us off.
Oh, okay. Nurture healthy independence in your children. I don't remember which smart man said this. Maybe James Dobson, but he said we're raising adults, and it's important that we let them be independent. Sometimes they might wear the polka dot pink and purple shirt with the lime green plaid pants, and that might really get on your nerves. But
I think it looks cool.
Yeah, but if she's
But
rocking
if you're looking
it,
at the dress you're watching, you can see who the better dresser is of the two of us.
well, I don't know about that, but just letting them be independent. I remember when our first went to kindergarten, she wanted to fix her own hair. And I was such a control freak. I let her finally, because I felt the Lord saying, does this really matter, Brandy? And no, okay. So I emailed her teacher and said, you might notice that McKinley's coming to school with an interesting hairstyle. I would never do that now.
That's
it kind of
embarrasses
me, but I'll tell y'all.
Well, talk about transparency. So we'll tell you all our words.
Yeah.
So you also need to teach accountability. This is something that is incredibly lost in society. Not holding ourselves accountable or being held accountable. In fact, that's where the whole entitlement comes from. Is because you think that you deserve something and there's no consequences whenever you act otherwise. That is something that you see the sickness that has fallen upon our society because of this. So we have got to teach our children what accountability is. Okay, well, here's what you did. Here's the consequences if you do such and such. And when you do this, and we'll talk about this on discipline, but you have got to defend those borders. They are like those raptors on, Jurassic Park. There's that one scene where it says, she never checks the same place twice. Whatever he said, and they will continue to test that fence. So you've got to be incredibly diligent, hold them accountable to the standard that you set. More importantly, to the standards that God sets.
And consistently.
And you will have to defend that border.
Principle number 4 is you can't control anyone except yourself. So by us choosing to have self-control when they've lost theirs, that's setting a good example. If we happen to lose our control, which we have both done many times.
Especially her. I mean, I only just destroyed a weed eater one time, but
I have never destroyed a weed eater.
And it was Easter Sunday, ironically.
Yeah, it's kind of funny.
Weed eaters are evil, man.
Yeah, it shouldn't have treated you like that.
Anyway, sorry. I digress.
I don't remember what I was saying. Oh, when you lose control. If they've lost their control, just reminding them, you can feel that way, but there's consequences if you do this. And if we lose our control, then we're apologizing. But to not hold your children accountable and to teach them self-control is to raise a wild adult.
The other thing is we have to teach our children to respect authority. That is, again, that kind of goes back to, accountability, but it's a separate category. I remember one time, I think it was a Wendy's, and there were these 2 teenage kids. And, if you need to ever be set straight, I'd be happy to, if you want to go through this, I believe that young men, these were young men, probably 16 years old or so, they needed the way. So what happened was I went inside because there's a long line. So I went inside to get my food and walking out, and I just said, "Excuse me," to these teenage boys, and because they were kind of in the way at the door, they said, "Yeah, excuse you," and I was like, "All right, it is time for an object lesson in life, you two." Anyway, by the time I had done, they were wide-eyed and yes sirring. But the thing is that kids don't have any respect for authority. And so we need to, I teach my children, if you want to have authority, respect authority. If you want to have respect, give respect. And these are biblical principles. Not things that I'm pulling out of my hat. So it's just something, though, that is very lost. And I see so many Christian parents that do not hold their children accountable to the standard which they should. And then they don't teach them to respect authority because they won't defend themselves. The kids, man, I tell you, you can talk to me one way. Now, y'all still set it straight. You can talk to me one way. But in our house, if a kid speaks negatively to her and I'm in the room, woo, man, you better watch out.
Well, even if it's not our family, you've been known
okay,
to,
all right, well,
hey, you really shouldn't be talking to your mom or your dad that way. Like he's big on that, and I really love and respect that. I wish I had the courage sometimes just to stand up for my friends when they're being steamrolled.
So teach respect and authority.
Yeah. As believers, it's important that we teach our kids to love God and love people. By loving people, we are teaching our children to see grown-ups. If they're playing their video game and someone comes up to tell them, they go out of their way to come tell our kid hi, and their video game is there, you pause that game and you look at their eyes and you say, hello, how are you? You interact with them, because those people that went out of their way to tell you hi are more important. And then find people and go tell them hi and love on them. Even though you're a child, your words are mighty, your attention is mighty. And when you love on people, they feel like they're being loved by God. And just raising them in that context. Also, manners.
Yes.
Manners are a way to teach love and respect.
They are.
The only reason we have manners and dignity is...
And etiquette used to be a thing, and some of it was I get it. Some of it was over the top.
Too rigid.
Okay, too rigid. But I didn't mean to interrupt you, but it's manners and etiquette.
Right.
And show respect, that you respect other people and that you see them, and I'm willing to treat you.
Right. I think when etiquette is treated in a legalistic way.
Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah,
that's when it becomes heartsick. But when we see manners as a way to honor that person and not gross them out or to be rude, I think it puts it in the context of loving your neighbor.
It's not just that. It's like opening doors, pulling chairs, offering somebody to go before you. I mean, these are all things that, I mean, we live in such a selfish time in society. Even it's hard keeping our faith when we're driving around these days sometimes, right? Yeah. But just, is it a big deal? I mean, yeah, go ahead, whatever, get in front of me. I don't care, but so many people don't, especially if you're trying to leave downtown, anywhere near 5 o'clock, it all funnels to one lane. The best of everybody comes out. It's just so wonderful. But that's it. You talk about manners though. And so every now and then I'll just stop and just, hey, just go ahead. And it's amazing though, when your people are fighting for a spot, that when you show them an act of kindness and you wave at them, say, oh, go ahead, that all of a sudden you can see facades come down and
the ice melts.
even driving. So anyway,
right. Well, and I love that sometimes he'll come home and talk about the driving, and he'll discuss that. And I love that you can be transparent in front of your kids, but also show, but I held it together, or this is what I did. You don't have to be perfect in front of them. They need to know you were frustrated.
Our kids, so we keep it at age appropriate levels, okay? Mm-hmm. But my kids, they see the real me. I do not. Everybody does. I'm not a one person in front of y'all. I'm not one person at church. I really am the same wherever I'm at. Mm-hmm. I remember one story I'm going to share real quick. There was a pastor that I respected, and when he was a teenager, his dad, he'd never heard his dad say a swear word, never seen him drink, never any of this stuff. Well, he was probably about 16 years old, and his dad was his hero. He was probably about 16, 17 years old, and his dad didn't think he was going to be home, or I'm not sure exactly, but he encountered his dad and some of his buddies were out in the back patio, and they were drinking and cussing. And I'm not critical. I'm just saying be who you are. I have no problems. Trust me. There's been a few words come out of my mouth, okay? And today. I mean, no. No, not that. Okay, well, maybe. I don't know. Now I have to think about it. Okay? No, I really do try to control my tongue. The second thing is I'm not criticizing if you drink, okay? I'm not doing that. God says don't drink to excess. So I'm not trying to get into any of that. But what it was in this particular story, though, is that he saw his father had spoken against all of these things, but was doing them all. And it actually really caused him to question his faith. And it pushed him far, and he took down some avenues. And eventually, though, he came back to God. It's a good message he gave. It's called The Prodigal Son. I still remember that. I was in college. I remember going to that service by myself and just sitting there and listening. And it's one of those things that, so when we talk about setting that example, being who we are, being genuine, be that in front of your kids. Emotions. Let's talk about emotions, because emotions come up through all of this. And I said it last week. It's worth repeating that emotions are wonderful servants, but they are horrible masters. We live in a time where it says, I feel like a girl, I feel like a boy, when they're not. We just, this week, we had that transgender shooting. So a girl who wanted to be a boy went in to a Christian school, wanted to kill people, killed some children. She was eventually taken. That's horrible. Those are, everybody says, well, we need to take all the guns away. Listen, the guns are the smoke. We need to talk about the fire. Well, we deny the identity of God, and all of that came about. Our identity, our image, the image of God. We are created in the image of God, male, female. Not going to get real deep on that tonight, but when we reject the image of God based on our feelings, based on our emotions, then you have a society that begins to turn their backs on God, and then you have chaos that ensues. So we need to teach our kids that we can be validated by our feelings, but many times our feelings will lie to us. We're angry for a reason that may not line up with reality, and that's something that we really need to teach them. That old saying, words will never hurt me. I can tell you several encounters in my life right now that words did way more damage than a baseball bat, to the gut. So they do hurt, but we have to teach our children, okay, what does God say about turning the cheek, praying for, in some cases, our enemies, people are gossiping or saying things bad about us. We have to turn these into, okay, listen, we got to give it to God. We can't, remember, principle number 4, you can't control anybody but yourself. So all this ties together. How do we line up God's promise, reality, with how we feel? And this is something that you'll have to do every day. I cannot tell you how many times every day I or Brandy, and even before we left to come up here, there was one of the kids that was playing the victim card, and it was about emotions and the way they felt. So this is something that's going to be a constant theme, raising children. I like the way Brandy says this, is that yelling is for emergencies. We don't yell at our home. Well, I'm loud. Okay, just if you know me, I'm loud. I am. I get it. You can say it. Sorry, I am. But I don't yell unless I have to. Like when my voice gets to a certain pitch or a certain decibel level, or if Brandy's does, that's saying, hey, there's something's wrong, danger, right? You have anything you want to add on that?
Well, and if you've lost it, I've certainly yelled a lot, especially when the 3 little girls were infant and toddler, because they were just born so close together. So I really did feel crazy. I mean, I'll just be honest with you.
It was a tough season. It really was.
It really was. And I found myself yelling a lot, and I would just remember the Lord, knock, knock, you're feeling a little stressed. It's not as important as you're making it. So just go take a minute. And God did a lot of wonderful things in my heart in that season, but the enemy comes in and he comes to shame, and he tells you how bad you are, what a bad parent you are, and how you're scarring the children for life. But God is so good. He's a redemptive God, and you just go to them and you tell them, listen, I yelled at you. I made you feel small, didn't I? I made you feel stupid when I said that, and I'm really sorry. Just taking responsibility for how you treated them, and they will forgive you. They do. They're wonderful.
And they can sniff out a rat too. They know when you're sincere and when you're not. And so we all make mistakes. And I'll probably apologize to kids more than she has. The only reason maybe not is because you're with them more. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm with them all day, so I think I win.
But this is a great example though of showing unconditional love. And being a safe place for them to fail. Kids are going to fail. You're going to fail. You have failed. Okay. I failed. I have learned far more from my failures than I've ever learned from any successes. Okay. My failures say, oof, don't do that again. And our children are going to do the same thing. So we have got to be that safe place, show them unconditional love, set the proper boundaries. Yes. Proper responses, but and then I'll tell you what, I'm going to be pretty transparent. Be sympathetic and empathetic. it depends on what the circumstances are. But I will say there was a circumstance as some kids have gotten older in certain situations where I wasn't very sympathetic. And God checked me on it. And so I went and sat. I mean, I'm talking about my older kids, so it's one of the two older ones, okay? And my boy, he doesn't talk hardly, to me on emotionally. We have to really sit down and create space for that. And so it was my girl. It was McKinley. And I had done something really to offend her, honestly. And I did not show sympathy or empathy about a particular deal, and the Lord checked me. And in that particular instance, I went into her room and I closed the door, sat on her floor, and I told her, I'm really sorry about this. I was wrong. And tears began.
She lost it.
She did. That's all I had to say. She saw I'm on her team again. And it's not that I wasn't on her team, but she didn't feel like I was on her team. And the tears began to flow, and we connected. It goes back to what? Having the heart of your child. And so just know you're going to make mistakes and screw up. Just be transparent and honest with yourself. Let God speak to you. When you hear God, act.
Mm-hmm. And just telling your kids, I remember what it was remember what it was like to be in your shoes. And I'm really sorry. It's hard. And you're doing a great job.
Yeah. Yep. Well, let's finish this up with section number 3. And, the Spirit, it's who we truly are. This is the eternal part of us. And I may do another, podcast, because everybody, don't put out in the comments, oh, there's more to the soul than the, mind, will, and emotions. Yeah, I agree. Okay. And we can get more sophisticated in what the word says about, our personalities, our will, our mind, because we know that in heaven we have clearly our mind. We clearly have a will. We clearly have emotions. So don't, but it is something we know that, we know that there's more to cover there, but let's now go to what's eternal, and that is who we truly are, and it's our spirit. I'm an evangelist. Ephesians 4:11 talks about the fivefold ministry. I have had the opportunity to lead many people to Christ. And that is probably my favorite thing. I think that's why I'm on this planet. Honestly, is to lead people to Jesus. That's my heart. And I do all these other things, but my heart is to tell people about Jesus. The most important people that we can tell about Jesus as a parent, I'm going to go ahead and just say it this way. Your number one most important job as a parent, period, is to introduce your children to Jesus Christ, to help them foster and come into a relationship with Jesus. It's the most important thing that you'll ever do, which we'll talk more about in a minute, but for your children. And let me tell you something. Parenting is easier when God is in the middle of your home. When your children have a relationship with Jesus, when you have a relationship with Jesus, and so that's the number one thing. The second thing that we really need to talk about is, I can't tell you how many times I've heard it. I've had lunches, people sitting across from me saying, I hate organized religion. I'm like, yeah, me too. And that was their argument. They're ready to have a conversation and a fight about it. I can think of 2 people right now. And that kind of destroyed the argument. So then they said, well, what is it about Jesus? I don't get it. I'm like, because God didn't call us to religion. He called us to a relationship with Jesus Christ. Everything Jesus did for us, everything God has done for us, read Revelations. Revelation, sorry, I know I had a little plural on there. But in the Revelation, look at everything that happens, and it's for our future, but it's because God loves us so much, he cannot wait to live, with his children in eternity, and not only live, but to have the most beautiful place to do it. And so it's about relationship. That needs to also be how it's mimicked or relayed to our children. If we establish rules without relationship, the result will be rebellion. And I'll tell you this, it kind of goes back to even what I said, if we provoke our children to wrath, if we don't have a sympathetic and empathetic heart towards them, if we create all these rules, all right, because this was good for you, but then there's not the relationship to go along with it, your child is going to rebel. It's a given. So it's really important, that we speak. And then there's that term legalism. I think we've mentioned it several times. I probably need to elaborate on that more, but that's basically, you've experienced this. Like, well, I've heard people say, well, if you drink alcohol, you're going to go to hell. Well, that's not what the Bible says. Okay. Or, that's legalism. Okay. Oh, if you're smoking a cigarette, you're going to die. Go to hell. That's not at all what Jesus said. Okay. So what happens? The Pharisees and the Sadducees, that was what legalism looks like. So anyway, I think I don't want to beat a dead horse on that, but just, because there's two sides of this. You can be too loose, which we'll talk actually, I think, about that a little bit on the discipline stuff, but you can be too permissive, and you can also be just massively strict. And that's not what God wants. He says, create relationship.
Part of being a great parent is speaking to your children of their value to you and their importance to you, and then also to God, telling them, I'm proud of you, I love you, I love who God made you. I'm glad to be your mom. I'm glad to be your parent. Watching you is one of the greatest joys in my life. And not fluffing things and being dishonest, but just speaking of their value. And when they do something well, being very generous with your praise to them. They will thrive on it like a plant with water and sunshine. I feel like we often will hear our kids, but not really listen to our kids. And so stopping what we're doing and sitting down the phone and seeing those eyeballs, that communicates, you're important to me. What you're telling me is way more important than what's on my phone. And so putting the phone down and getting eyeball to eyeball with them and really hearing their story and just being able to witness what's happening in their life, getting on your hands and knees and looking inside the dollhouse, what they did, or the Lego creation they made, by spending time with them, that also communicates volumes.
She says something that's really big right there. So my kids, it's easy sometimes to come home from work, men or women, I know, and to come home from work, you're mentally tired, you're ready, to get something in your stomach, sit down and recreate maybe or whatever, but they're excited to show you their Lego creation or a picture they drew or a story that they wrote. And it's easy to walk past that moment. I can't tell you how many times God has said, well, hey, turn around and look at that. And so just be kind of cognizant of that. It's really important.
It's really important that we protect our kids from humiliation, even if that means that we're the ones embarrassing them. Correct them in private, even if that means in front, like your
immediate family.
Immediate family. I don't know. I couldn't think of that word. Your immediate family. Just separate that one child. Just say, "Hey, can I visit with you in my room?" And separating them creates a cushion where this embarrassing thing is not made public. Never discipline your child in front of people. It's demeaning, and they take it into their heart that I am bad. And by separating them, and you can tell them, the only reason we're in my room is because I didn't want you to get embarrassed, and just make it known that you're protecting their heart.
And this includes big kids too, by the way. I've recently done this with, just even older kids. Some of them that even weren't mine, but I mean that just, so give them that same level of respect.
Yeah, and if you have a family member, maybe you're at a Thanksgiving gathering and you have one family member that's not a part of your immediate family that just won't let it go. They tease your children mercilessly, or maybe they're just barraging them with questions or something like that. And you can see your kid shutting down. Come to their rescue.
Yeah. I can think of, I had certain family members that I can think of that even would pick on, attributes, that I was weak in or something like that created long-term effects. So just know that when you step in and fill that gap, you're a hero.
Yeah.
And you gain ground and turf with your kid. You know, I think that this is one of the, we're going to, out of all the things we've said tonight, this is one of the most important things we're going to close on this. And that is to protect the purity and innocence of your kid. Giving your kid a phone, even though you say, well, I've got to protect it. And then, well, do that. Go to all those things. But you give a kid, I remember one time down at Hope Choice, there was an 8-year-old little girl came in addicted to porn. Kids, the parents gave the kid a tablet, and she found pornography and was addicted to it. And they're like, well, why didn't you take it away? Well, like, it's hers. I mean, like, smack. This is when you want to just smack somebody. I mean, how stupid are you that you're their parent and it's hers? No, it is not hers. And so I know that most of y'all listening to me aren't anywhere in that realm, okay? But we have got to protect their innocence. I don't watch movies with nudity in them. I do this for several reasons. One, I don't want to have it in my head because it dishonors God and it dishonors my bride. When I don't want these images in my mind because they're not going to be pure. In Philippians 4, 8, and 9, it talks about whatever is pure, whatever is noble, whatever is, lovely, And so when we talk about these things, we have to apply that not only to our children, but to ourselves.
And teaching them, that is the standard. If you don't know if a movie's worth seeing or not, if it has this, or this in it, and it doesn't fit that standard, then we don't see it.
We don't.
And many believers are watching garbage.
Well, I mean, I remember years back that horrible 50 Shades of Grey. We heard of people, Christians, getting babysitters and going and watching that show. Let me tell you something. That is porno. That is pornographic. Nothing fruitful is going to come from that. Is going to be trash and sin that comes out.
Well, and something that the way I've taught our kids about sex is created by God, and it is a holy thing, and it is good because he made it. The enemy will take it and pervert it. God made it for one man, one woman who are married to each other, no one else watching. And this is not going to be popular.
No, it's not. Every time I bring it up, I can't tell you how many lunches I've had with guys and I say, I don't watch movies with nudity. And, they want to ridicule it. Like, listen, does that honor God? Does it honor your wife? If it doesn't.
Right. And to teach our kids the same level of standard is teaching them a discipline of holiness. In Hebrews 12, it says, without holiness, no one will see the Lord. So we're stepping on toes.
I know we probably are, but listen, we want to tell you this, that we're not condemning you.
No.
We're trying to, I have been there. I remember on numerous occasions, how it affected me, and I did not feel closer to God because of it. Right. Listen, I want to say this. I shared my testimony last week on episode or the part 1 of this parenting series, but I'm going to share it again in a different way. But I want to say this. If you do not have a relationship with Jesus Christ, it's the most important decision of your life. Reach out to us. Put it in the comments. I actually look at the comments and just say, hey, listen, be praying for me. Or, hey, can I talk to you? And I will get, if you want to talk to me, or if you want me to put you in contact with a pastor, or if you just want to come by the church, or if you want to approach me at church, feel free. I just want to tell you this. Jesus loves you. He died on the cross for you. And even though we talked about kind of some hard things tonight, we are not condemning you in any way. That is not who we are, and that is not who Jesus is. He is calling us to a higher standard, because he is the highest authority. I hope that this podcast has blessed you. If it has, please like and subscribe. Tell your friends about it. Share with somebody else. And we will see you on the next podcast.
Bye.